Welcome to this special edition of Paradise Talks with your host, Emma Bartholomew. Today we're having a power brief one-to-one with the founder of one of the most exciting and acclaimed non-alcoholic drinks brands on the market, Caleño. Caleño Drinks was born out of personal frustration. Founder Ellie Webb was on a non-alcoholic night out with friends and felt just uninspired by the alcohol-free drinks on offer. So she decided it was time to bring some joy to not drinking. Fueled by Latin positivity, Ellie set out to infuse the sun-drenched flavours of Colombia, her homeland, with her non-alcoholic spirits. So to chat about the success of her beautifully vibrant and inspiring brand, I'd like to welcome Ellie Webb. Ellie, welcome to Paradise Talks. And I know it's a little bit late in the day, but I'm going to say Happy New Year. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too, Emma, and thank you so much for having me on today.
Oh no, it's a joy, and I cannot think of anybody more relevant and appropriate to be talking to right now, so I'm very excited. Now let's start with January. This is where we are now. It's a dull month, but not where Caleño is involved. Being the start of the year, which for many will be a dry January, I guess this must be a hectic time for Caleño, and I see you have literally been driving the brand onto people's radars with an incredible branded double-decker bus, which I just love from your footage. And it's been filmed with you delivering bottles of Caleño to doorsteps like milk bottles, which I think is just genius. Can you maybe tell us a little bit about that and some of the other brand activations and activities that you've got going on specifically this month of maybe dry January?
Yeah, of course. So we didn't want this to be a dull January, and with everything that's going on, even more so, we felt it was important to kind of show up in a bright, vibrant Caleño way. So as a brand, we're very much saying no to a joyless January. And so what better to do that than to actually take a giant double-decker bus and drive it around the country and just deliver a bit of joy to people, drop some Caleño bottles on their doorstep. So just after Christmas, in the lead up to dry Jan, we sort of took to the streets of London and took this bus all around London, dropped some bottles off on a few streets in London, and also took it all around the UK, really. We actually visited around 10 cities, and we dropped bottles also off in Bristol and Manchester. So we had a lot of fun the week after Christmas. And in the lead up to dry January, which is a time, people think dry January starts 1st of January after New Year, but actually once Christmas is out the way, we find searches for alcohol-free drinks start to spike on the kind of 27th, 28th, that period in between Christmas and New Year. People are starting to think about their New Year's resolution and just preparing for the month ahead. So we decided to take to the streets and just bring a little bit of joy and shake up dry January.
I love that. I'm just imagining all those people feeling kind of slumped and particularly lazy after they've drunk too much Baileys, and they're just desperate for something a bit exciting but still slightly cleansing, alcohol-free wise. So I love it. I love your branding as well. It's just so vibrant. So to bring that to people's doorsteps in this month of all months is brilliant. And I'd imagine, obviously, you are a brand, you're a long-term brand. This is not just a kind of one-hit wonder situation. So beyond tapping into New Year's resolutions, I guess that year-round activations at events, in venues and retailers would be kind of key to growing a brand like Caleño. Have you had to be even more creative to plan this particular side of your brand marketing, given the realities of pandemic life?
Absolutely is the answer, to be honest. You make a plan and then 6 months later you have to rip it up and start again. Not start again, but change it quite significantly. And I think that's the reality of the world we live in right now. And we've had to come to terms with it as marketers and brands, that your plans may have to change at a moment's notice. And we were definitely facing that in December with the virus on the rise and cases of those on the rise, and potentially facing more restrictions and lockdown. So we found ourselves sort of being quite reactive to that change, working within quite uncertain environments, and at the mercy of more restrictions coming into place within a few days' notice. So we started thinking about different scenarios and what could we do. We already had the bus planned, and we were just adamant we still wanted to bring joy to people over the month of January. So we were still able to kind of continue with a thread of that plan. But if you look at the different channels, for example, the entree bars, restaurants, hotels, etc., they are living in a really, really uncertain time at the moment, and we work with these channels. So it's a constant reassessment of what's going on and what's happening in the world, and adapting our plans, and also the mood of the nation. One minute you plan a piece of activity, and that can be right for a certain time period, but actually you put that in a completely different situation and a mood, and it can be completely wrong. So you do have to be very mindful of what you're doing, and at the time you're doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. I imagine that kind of level of sensitivity is so heightened and has been so heightened over the last couple of years. Just out of curiosity, did you mentioned all the different cities that you took the bus to? Was there anywhere that you had a particularly positive response? I imagine everyone was pretty pleased to find Caleño on their doorstep, but was there one city that really took to it?
Oh gosh, probably actually Manchester, interestingly. And I mean, by the time we were in Manchester, it was the 30th, so it was a lot closer to January. So I wonder whether people, right directly after Christmas, the day after Boxing Day, people are sort of just collecting themselves and may still be off work, um, and feeling a little bit full after Christmas dinner and Boxing Day lunches. So we definitely found the closer we got to dry January, the more people were engaging and incredibly happy to receive the bottles, and responding quite well. But we got an amazing reaction to the bus, not just in person, but on social media, and across the different platforms that we shared it on.
Yeah, I can totally imagine. I mean, just the fact that you're bringing that brightness into people's life, even if people weren't familiar with the brand before, just seeing that kind of happiness and the cheer that we all desperately need. I'm looking out of my window right now, and I don't think I've ever seen a grayer grey.
Yeah.
So contrasting that with the beautiful vibrancy of your Caleño colours is exactly what we all need right now. And in terms of approaching the branding specifically of a no alcohol brand, do you go about that in the same way as an alcoholic one, as in, are you essentially appealing to the same consumer or potentially the same consumer, or is it a different, more nuanced approach? I genuinely don't know the answer to that, so I'm fascinated.
I mean, the reality is it's a mix of both. We don't
Yeah.
act like exactly like a spirit, an alcoholic spirit brand, and we don't also act like a soft drink. We're somewhere in between. But interestingly, I mean, in terms of the consumer, and you mentioned the consumer, less than a month ago, YouGov released some data from a poll which showed that over 30% of drinkers said now that they often or sometimes choose to drink low and no alcohol products. So there's definitely a crossover, and there's a lot of our consumers do drink alcohol, but they are choosing Caleño because they're choosing to moderate and cut back on alcohol. And then, of course, you've got an increasing minority who are choosing to cut out alcohol completely. So I guess you could make some comparisons to the flexitarian versus vegan movement, and the different stages that people are at within that. But we don't just appeal to non-drinkers, certainly, and we have a lot of customers who drink alcohol for sure.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. And actually, you're mentioning the flexitarian thing. That's kind of the way that I would imagine it from looking at it from the outside. It makes so much sense to me as a consumer to think, well, sometimes I just might want to ease up on the alcohol, and it doesn't mean that I don't want to have a gin and tonic on another day. But when I do want to drink something non-alcoholic, I want it to be exciting and a bit spicy. So Caleño is totally perfect for that.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
Go
No, I
on,
was just saying
please.
that's exactly our approach this month, and why we've called our campaign "Shake It Up," because we're basically saying to people, don't just opt for another glass of water. I mean, of course, we're not saying don't drink water. That's vital to your daily requirements. But when you get to the evening, you get to the end of the day, and it's a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, weekday night, and you've got a lot on the next day. Don't just opt for another soft drink or another glass of water. Make up a cocktail. Do something exciting. Really create some theatre around that. And guess what? You're going to still feel great the next day because you haven't had uh, lots of alcohol that evening. So we're just trying to send a message to people that it doesn't have to be doom and gloom and a dull January.
Yeah, I am fully on board, and I love the idea of the theatre of making your drink, and beyond just whatever the drink is itself, it's the experience, which I think you're really contributing to. So, yeah, hats off to you, basically. Um, Now, tell me, the brand itself, you must have started with this beautifully vibrant concept, but has the brand adapted since you first came up with it, or have you tried to stick as closely as possible to your original vision? Being your baby, I guess it's very, very close to your heart.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much we're incredibly, if not still at the initial vision, which was I want to bring fun, I want to bring joy, I want to bring energy to this category. And I think back in, well, 5 years ago, back in 2017 in January, when I first sketched a picture of what the bottle might look like, I literally kind of put color splashing off the bottle. And so I didn't know what that would look like. I'm not a designer. I needed help to bring that to life. But we very much stuck closely to that original vision around what the brand was here to do and bring about. But it's obviously the messaging and the way that we've shown up has changed as the brand has grown, and you need to iterate, of course. But fundamentally, we've stuck to the core of that. And I think that's important because as a founder, you start off with a vision and a reason for why you've created a product or a brand. And I think it's important that you stick to your roots. It may look different, it may sound a little bit different, but ultimately it's the same vision from the beginning. So we've very much stuck to that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that almost makes it easier for your loyal audience and your growing audience to love you and to invest in you as a brand, as human beings, because you've created your DNA from the beginning, and that's what people really buy into. So, yeah, I can totally see that kind of journey, but also sticking to your guns, which is awesome. And what do you think your biggest brand lesson or maybe awakening has been since you launched Caleño?
Oh gosh, so many things, so many things.
Yeah, I
But
bet.
if I had to narrow it down, I would say don't sweat the small stuff. I think in the beginning, it can be really easy to obsess over perfecting your packaging, your brand strategy, all the tiny details. But the reality is, in the end, it will all change and evolve as you grow. And I think, looking back, and of course, that stuff is important, but really the fundamentally important thing as a small brand is to get noticed and to grow. And the first few years are about your survival and your growth. And so if you're obsessing over a tiny detail on the packaging and should we do this, frankly, no one cares because no one knows about your brand and your product yet. You just need to get out there and get it in front of people in the best possible iteration that you have. And I think the biggest single thing we focused on as a brand is being distinctive in terms of how the bottle looks and how we show up and our communication. So when people notice us, they remember us. And the packaging has changed over the years, but color, vibrancy, and our Latin roots have still remained at the heart of everything. So yeah, I think overall biggest brand lesson has been don't spend too much time on the small stuff, particularly in the beginning, because it's really about just getting the brand out there.
Yeah. Very, very wise words. And what better way to get the brand out there than driving it literally into people's faces, which I love it so much because it's almost like a kind of carnival festival-esque type feeling, seeing that bus driving around. And it matches so well with the Latin roots and the vibrancy of the whole thing. So I want to get on that bus, I think is what I'm basically saying.
Oh, well, we've got more buses, Caleño, I say buses as if there's loads of them. There's only one, unfortunately. But
Oh, that is a shame.
we are making the most of it throughout Jan in a safe way. So we'll be outdoors, but I'd love to see it, driving down Oxford Street, maybe with some carnival dancers and the top. Maybe we'll get an open
Oh,
top bus next
yes.
time.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, bring it. So I can't believe we've come to the end of our chat already, but my last question to you is, what would be your ultimate dream for Caleño's future? I think it's going to be bright, but what would you like it to look like?
Oh, good question. I think for me, when I started on this journey with Caleño 5 years ago, and doing my very first dry January, going back to situation I was in a bar with some friends. I didn't want to drink alcohol, but I felt like I was being forced to, or I was being forced to drink something I didn't want to drink. So the dream for me in Caleño remains the same, in that I want to be able to walk into any pub, bar, or restaurant. I want to be able to walk into any supermarket or shop and find Caleño readily available, or at least, a great non-alcoholic range, be that non-alcoholic beer, non-alcoholic spirits, cocktails, ciders, you name it. I think that we're at a stage now where that needs to happen. And so that's the dream we're pushing for. But I guess the Caleño slant on it is doing that in a fun, vibrant way that shows people you can go out with your friends and socialize and not drink alcohol and still have a great evening. So I think for me it's really pushing on with that dream, and showing people that's possible, making that a reality, and becoming the norm.
Yeah, that's an awesome dream, because that's a wider thing. That's about a culture change, which we probably desperately need, especially in the UK. So, yeah, I am fully supporting that, and I will be on that bus in my carnival outfit. You have been warned.
Volunteer, I love it.
When the sun shines. Yes, definitely. I'll be driving it. Ellie Webb, it's been a joy. Founder of Caleño Drinks. Thank you so much for joining me on today's Power Brief. We will be back soon with another episode of Paradise Talks with more insider intel from the creative industries.
To discover more about the agency and Paradise Talks, visit www.paradise.london.